of us, of those who traveled the corners of the earth, the four corners, and those Africans who were captured and brought here against their will. We have a triple heritage, and it's very important that we as a people understand that we have a triple heritage. We want to thank our African brothers and sisters, the Twa people, who carry their history in their orality, who built civilization 30,000 years ago in Monomotapa. If we think about the great walls of Zimbabwe, and they continue to move along the Nile, and they built Nubia, Sudan, where we had great African queens, and more pyramids in Sudan and Nubia than in Kemet. And if we say Kemet as the zenith, where it was written in stones, they built along the ecology and the pharmacology of the Nile, great civilizations using agriculture, political government, developing trade routes, language, science, everything that the world sees today, technology, emanated out of the bosom of ancient Africa. Nothing is new under the sun. So we want to say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. So shall it be. Give thanks, everybody. If you came on and you didn't give us your name, drop it in the chat. We're going to talk to you later about yourself, but I want you to continue to connect. So before we invite our guests in, I'm going to start by just talking about some things before I start to interview our beautiful guests. We have some powerful people here today. And so I wanted to start with the name, Sankofa, the concept. It's an old concept. It's a way of life. Go back and fetch it. Go back into the egg. Take the best of yourself as you walk forward, as you see. And that's our journey, right? And so as we continue to traverse the land, we want to stay once again. Africa is the cradle of civilization. When everybody mess with you, just remind them that you're their parent. Stop arguing with people. Stop debating people. When people mess with me, I say, I'm your dad. I'm your daddy. Behave. So you need to just be confident that the birthplace of humanity, the melanated people, started with us and will begin with us. So there's a person named Dinkinesh. Some people say it's 100 and something thousand. Some people say over 3.2 million. The Europeans, the grave diggers, call themselves archaeologists, founded her. They call her Lucy. We call her Dinkinesh. She's older than time. Continue the recording. And then we have the great Sheikh Anta Diop. He's the greatest scientist. He's the greatest scientist. I might say he's one of, but I can say he's the greatest scientist par excellence. Sheikh Anta Diop, you need to learn about him. He has some scientific methodology that he's used to prove that he's African people. Because whenever African people is great, they say it was an African who built the pyramids. He also talk about the fact that we're really living in one race. It's a human race. Africans, Kemites as the parent. There's not that happens without Africa. Humanity, Kemetic spirituality, economics, political culture, engineering, technology, temple, scale, zodiac, law, farming, mathematics. Listen. So as African people, we need to begin to really learn. When we talk about generational wealth, knowledge is also generational wealth. Know thyself and be true. So these are some of the instruments where the ancient Egyptians, Kemites, that they used for farming. They understand the harvest season, the growing season. They were salting fish before Newfoundland had salt fish. They were feeding the workers who built the pyramids, salting fish, because they understand the science of food. One of our great African proverbs, Until the lion tells his or her side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. Think about that. We shall not let no European pretenders tell our stories. We need to tell it. Indigenous people, African people have lived globally for years, for centuries. As you can see, our brothers, our African brothers, they call them the Aborigines of Australia, live many moons. And today they still get treated. They used to be called fauna, because people don't know how to treat the melanated beginners, the cradle of civilizers of the world. We had homes, we built spaces, even in this country called Canada. In Canada, we built up Africville, Africans, and we were talking about generational wealth. And then the European came and they come up with some reason, didn't put sanitary conditions there. They didn't put kind of thing, they put dump there. Then eventually they came and bulldozed it. When I went to Halifax the other day to Africville, it was a sign, it became a dog park. As you know, Europeans love their dogs more than they love African people. But we built up Africville, they destroyed Africville. Amber Valley, Africans came over many moons ago, and they were leaving one Jim Crow in the US, and they were told that Canada is a beautiful place. They land here, and they learn quickly that the European, wherever he lives, is the same. He treated the people bad here, but the people persisted. They wanted to build generational wealth. Today, if you find a community center in Alberta named Amber Valley, good luck. At least we have the stamp. Those Africans were also thinking about generational wealth. Ogun's Alley, Africans came over. They couldn't get homes. They were on the porters. They couldn't get places. They start to build. They end up building this place, Ogun's Alley. Eventually, the Europeans in British Columbia, Vancouver, they came with a European law called eminent domain, and they mashed it up. They built a viaduct. They wanted to run a freeway through Chinatown and this African place. They eventually didn't do the freeway, but they built a viaduct to finally destroy this. So when we talk about generational wealth, we built that here. We built it here. Now I go to Montreal, look at Burgundy. These Africans were told, once again, the porters, Africans coming in from different angles, different places. They were told they can't live over this side where the white men live. So they begin to develop their own communities like Little Africa in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they were building up their communities to leave generational wealth. Eventually, the government of Quebec, Montreal, came and said that they can't have these people here. What did they do? They built another freeway, another thing, and split the community and forced us, our African economies, our African generational wealth. They did that in Montreal. They did that in Nova Scotia. We had communities in Oakville, there's Africans was in Oakville standing up building. And then they had, they came through the Underground Railroad. And then people came in there, the KKK, and told Black people what they can and can't do. And we were thinking about generational wealth and building. And once again, the European, there's a saying out there that I don't want to say. And if you record this, I'm going to say I didn't say it. It said, the quote is said, the white man's heaven is a Black man's hell. And you want to take what you may. African people came over here as loyalists. We came over here supporting the British. They lied. Every time they look around, they lied to us. They told us if we could just come to Canada to support them in the US in the war, that they would give us land. When we came to Nova Scotia, they gave us rock. They treat us like nothing. They promised us 40 acres and a mule in slavery. They continue to do this over and over again. The Black loyalists, some of them got so fed up in Nova Scotia, they asked to go to Sierra Leone. Once again, they were promised land in Sierra Leone. 15 ships left Halifax to go to Freetown. And once they reached Freetown again, those British lied again. And the Africans continue to struggle to get land to build generational wealth. The Africans came over from Jamaica. These Africans had their own land in Jamaica. They had a second Maroon War because they're trying to disrespect Black people. And these Africans in Jamaica, they called Maroon, said, hell no. And they started a second Maroon War. Now, the British said that they wanted to make peace, and they said, let's meet. And, you know, sometimes as African people, I must say, some of us are still, you know, we still get food, right? And so they say, let's meet. And these Africans met them and they kidnapped them. And so, and deported, they deported them from their own land and deported them to Nova Scotia. These Africans, when they came, the white man come and bow at their feet and say, hey, welcome, because they're afraid of the Maroons. They know that they're warriors. They helped build the citadel in Halifax, these Africans. These Africans were there and they're building, but you know, these Africans, they feared, they promised them land, they didn't give them the land. Eventually, some of these Africans said, hey, we're tired of this cold weather. This is not us. This is for ice people. And they left and they went to Sierra Leone. And while in Sierra Leone, the European government in Sierra Leone tried to pit the Maroons against the Black loyalists. And I only say this to say that we should no longer let the white man, Europeans, put us against each other. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who create the system of white supremacy. And so some Africans left Sierra Leone. 64 of them left and went back to Jamaica. So as Africans, we're always talking about generational wealth. We're talking about the land, right? And they promise us land. And they never live up to their promises, right? And so when somebody here say the axe forgets, the tree remembers, you know, you have to think about what we're saying here. The axe forgets, but the tree remembers. I am not African because I was born in Africa, but because Africa was born in me. Asaji Kwame Nkrumah. And these quotes are always important for us to remember. You can't forget, you must remember. We have to develop African concepts, because if we don't use African concepts to determine how we move forward, then we're going to continue to pretend to be capitalist Europeans. We can't pretend. It's like making Jesus Black. That don't mean nothing if the concepts of Jesus still exist in our white supremacy. And so we need to create our concepts. We need to use our concept when we move into the future. We need to use Mahat. We need to talk about truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, balance, order, and harmony. If we're not talking about that as Africans, how did we practice Mahat today? If we're not talking about that, are we not using the feather to weigh our souls? Did we do good today? Because the bottom line is, as Africans, we have to hold ourselves in these concepts. Moral code. We're talking about value system. It's crazy that I still have to use the hip hop of Black Dot and all the ancient Africans who use hip hop. The hip hop, the graffiti, the hair, the DJ, the water, the b-boys, the fire. They took our hip hop and give us hop. And so what I'm saying at the end of the day, we got to take this Black and then give it back to our children the way they need to consume it. We're not giving them anything. Before I move, I have a couple slides left. But in Yoruba spirituality and Yoruba concept, they speak about Orosiso, Iterebi, Inureri, Otito, truth, Iwa, character. And we're talking about character, Apollo, Pipe, intelligence, Ishe, hard work, Akin, Kanju, bravery. And it's because these concepts are so important, folks. We have to develop concepts, African concepts that hold us accountable while we live in white supremacy into contradictions. We have to use our African culture, our drumming, our tools of poetry, dance, singing, martial arts, hip hop, folk tales, writing, and games to come back to ourselves. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered the most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph. So we have to know, this is a Haile Selassie quote, we have to know history, as we won't have a future. So in the housing discrimination, as we're going to talk about real estate, out of slavery, they said, we're going to give you 40 acres and a mule. And they didn't do that. We had our African people they call sharecroppers. They had them on plantation till telling them that since they don't have a place to live, they can continue to work. By the end of the year, it's like the mafia. African people owed more money, so they could never leave the plantation. Slavery never ended. They just rearranged it. Just like how a lot of us is at work today, we have a thing called job, right? We're jobbing, right? We're still in the workforce, forced work. They had redlining, right? They had racist covenant that Black people can't move in this area. They had redlining where the banks wouldn't give you, or they lower ball your thing, or if you try to go in, they raise the, saying this appraisal. They had a thing called eminent domain where they put viaducts, freeways, railroad through your communities to destroy it. African people resisted though. Donald Moore, our elder ancestor from Barbados, he took a delegation to Ottawa to say to the prime minister of the day, stop it, man, stop it. Africans need justice. We fought against discrimination in housing, employment services, social services. And so we can't talk about generational wealth without talking about resistance, without talking about the history, right? So I ain't like, yeah, I don't mind owning property, but I need to know that they own Africans as property. And the first thing you have to relieve yourself is your mentor. We got to stop the genocide and the menticide. And so building generational wealth, and we're going to get to our guests soon. Human resources, the people is the number one thing when we talk about generational, is the people. Africans never worried about generational wealth when we were in Africa because it was the people. The people. Then we had collective spirituality. We developed a value system. Whether it was in Ghana, whether it was Togo, whether it was Benin, whatever countries we call them now. Because before it was the Yoruba nation. It was Fulani nation. Collective spirituality, developing a value system is important. The ecology of the Nile, we have to deal with agriculture and nature. We have to develop political and cooperative economic system, but we have to develop political management system. And political system is not voting every 4 years for dumb and dumber, the Democrats or the Republican men. That's not politics, that's politics. And so we need to know what, when we Africans say political management system, what are we talking about? We're talking about how we govern ourselves, how we can put people to enter and create new systems. If we're going to go into a thing, we need to develop our own systems. So when we put somebody in parliament, we're putting them to tell the truth. And that's so important. So, we will talk about this on another day. But some of the cultural value system we need to implement for ourselves are Mahat, Ubuntu, Nguzo Saba, Sankofa, and more. There's so much more. Some of the things that we can do today to counteract capitalism and patriarchy and white supremacy racism and build generation. We're talking about farming, we're talking about Black food sovereignty. We're talking about creating pooling resources, partners, susu. We're talking about purchasing land trusts, creating land trusts. We're talking about using solar energy, electric energy. We're talking about developing study groups to free our minds. We're talking about health and wellness circles. We're talking about building flat, rotating, and truly democratic structures of leadership. We have to see something different. One of my great father ancestor, now his name is Baba John Henry Clark. Every form of true education trains the student in self-reliance. Every form of true education trains the student in self-reliance. Dr. John N. Clark. And so the question ultimately I have today, even though we're going to ask those folks a lot of questions, is this: can we collectively own real estate, property for living, for also investment? Can we develop some new ways of purchasing in times of overpricing and different things? Can we buy land and develop our own communities? Those are two of the overarching questions I want to ask today. But in the meantime, to get to it, we're gonna start with beginning questions. So, greetings, everybody. Thanks for listening. I want to ask Brother Horace and Sister Ashley to come on. Turn on your camera, because now I'm gonna put you on the cold seat.
Yes. Hi. How you doing? Can you hear me? See
Great,
me?
great. I promise to be gentle today because I'm getting old.
Okay.
So let's start with Sister Ashley, who she emanates from the ancient mothers. So we have to start with you. You gave birth to humanity. So Sister Ashley, please tell us. You've been doing this, right? This thing you do, you moved. I want to take you on your biography journey. Why did you decide to exit stage left, which is the GTA?
Yeah, and thank you again for the invite. And good afternoon to everyone. So to answer your question, and I'm sure everyone else, so I do reside in Cornwall, and if you do a little Google search about it, it's a smaller city. Maybe some others might think it's rural, but it is quite developed for a small city. Why we chose to move to Cornwall was for personal reasons regarding my family moving to Ottawa. But the opportunities, just doing research, I was in Toronto and the affordability was just becoming harder. Your pay is not equivalent to what you have to spend. And I'm also a single mom. So looking at already owning a property, I wanted to see, okay, well, I don't want to be house poor. And that's what it is. You have a house, but then you're still struggling, and that's not how it should be. You then start to resent what you're doing, and which is building equity and building for yourself. So with the opportunity of a family member moving to Ottawa, I opted to come a little bit closer to them, but didn't want to move from one city to another big city and have to deal with the same issues. So upon doing research, Cornwall actually makes sense financially and statistic-wise. Because of COVID, with all the lockdowns and the affordability of housing, Cornwall has actually experienced a great boost in where it's developing as well. So these are good indicators to review whenever you're looking to purchase a property. You want to see, how often is the city actually developing, are there houses being built? And so when we had moved here about 4 years ago, the house market was, you can get like a 3-bedroom house for $160,000 now, which is comparable to a condo in Toronto, if you look at numbers. So you're able to get a house and some land for the same price that you're paying for a condo in Toronto, just to put that in perspective. And I'm not saying, you have to come to Cornwall. These are just things I'm trying to educate as what influenced my decision to come here. So these are things that you should look for as well. So number-wise, it just makes sense. And now with COVID, after all these lockdowns, so something that was affordable for 150 is now probably going for 325. So over time, I'm able to gain equity on something that I'm just holding on to. A house is not something that you want to just jump into because you want to get the money right now. It's literally a nest egg. You're waiting for it to just grow over time. And then when you see the opportunity to maybe sell or, maybe take out equity in the house to do some renovations, it's easier to do it in a market like this than it was for me to do that in Toronto. So these were key factors that I had to kind of look at, and you're always constantly learning and trying to figure out what makes sense. So we have an established business in Cornwall.
Hold on. You can't tell them everything at once. So I'm gonna
okay.
stop. Yeah, you have to save some for them.
Okay.
They're gonna leave. So hold on. And then I'm gonna go to Mr. Horace, Dockery, and ask him kind of the same question. Brother Horace, how did you get into this thing now that you are an investor, you are a real estate broker, mortgage broker? No, not much people do both sides. Where are you, brother? Come on.
Can you see me? Can you see me?
Let me see if I can see you. Where are you? I'm looking. Okay. No, no, I can't see you.
Can anyone else see me?
No,
No,
it's
you're
black.
not on.
Really?
Your camera not on, but they can hear you.
Okay, I'll put my video up. I'm trying to send an email to on my phone right now, but I'm sorry about that. I'm gonna try and get another connection anyways to my laptop. But
Yeah.
my history is that yes, very rare you see real estate brokers do mortgage brokering. So I started off as a property owner slash investor. And from that experience, I kind of, learned as much as I possibly could and started sharing my knowledge with other people. And then a friend of mine who had just become a real estate agent told me to explore my license. So I started on that journey soon after. And from there on, I realized that two and two go hand in hand, real estate and mortgages. And I explored getting my real estate license. And then eventually I got my broker's designation and I opened up my own mortgage brokerage. And I got into private lending because everything was sort of all tied hand in hand. What I ended up encountering is that a lot of people in our community was going through financial difficulty. And a lot of it was just sort of like easy to deal with. But unfortunately, without financial options or alternatives, many were losing their houses unnecessarily. So when you start, there's so many things you could do to help people. And one of my goals, particularly in terms of our community, is that I do my very best. Especially, I get a lot of I'm what we call sort of like ER or surgery, a mortgage broker. We deal with a lot of crisis situations and problems. So when I get into those situations, sometimes it's people who bought a new build and for some reason their financing fell through last minute. And in addition to that falling through last minute, the lenders will not finance it because the timeline is just way too short, or the builder saying we're not going to give any more extension because essentially the property value has gone up so much that they have no motive to let the client continue, because if they redeem back the property because of failure to perform or carry out the contract, then they can always sell the property back for a lot more money. So in those situations now, I leverage my assets in terms of my knowledge, my network, my resources to get those kind of people closed within a day or two to save them from losing their house or their investment overall. Other things as well that I realized that was coming up significantly in our community, power sales. People were taking loans that they could not repay, and they had no idea or understanding of the risk associated with that. So we try and get people out of those particular difficult challenges so that they don't lose their house and maintain their assets shelter over their heads. Because right now in this kind of market, it's more expensive to rent than to own right now, right? So having that knowledge in real estate and mortgages and how to navigate the system on the legal side as well, and how the both sides, from the banker to the real estate side, it gave me an advantage. And I've used that to help people significantly, and also use it as an investor as well to build up my own portfolio, and also share people and teach people how to do it. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. So thank you. So do what you got to do and see if you could come online. We want to bring back Sister Ashley.
I'm going to open up from another link, so just look out for me, okay?
Yeah,
from that
definitely.
link. All right?
Yes,
Great.
yes.
Awesome.
So we want to bring back Sister Ashley. So here it is. You move, so now you have a property for sale. So, the first thing, when I looked up generational wealth around African people in ancient Africa, it's the same reason. So sometimes people would say, but it's Africa, everything started from. The first thing was shelter. The second thing, they wanted, after they get their shelter, they get food. You could do that whichever way. And then the next thing is safety. So that's what you did for your child and yourself. First, to get shelter. Once you get shelter, though, when were you thinking? Because investment is not for everybody. When did you start to think there's an opportunity here?
So just a bit my background. So I do have a substantial financial background. I worked for a bank for about 10 years, actually. So with that knowledge and taking as many business courses as I had throughout high school and university, When you're in the real world, it's different. And then you start seeing things. The misconception when you're younger is that adults have everything together. When you're working at the bank, you actually see that they don't. Most adults are struggling. They're using their credit cards. They're getting these loans. And it's really unfortunate because it's a vicious cycle that they sometimes get stuck in. So with my background in that retrospect, investing to me makes sense. I've only rented once in my life. I was totally blown by the fact that you can rent something and you can own something and pay a lot cheaper for it. All contrary to the maintenance fees of a condo. But if you have a house, a freehold, then you might be paying cheaper for your own house than you're paying for rent. So working at the bank and seeing this, it blew my mind that no one else was saying this to people, like, hey, stop renting, just own. So for me, having that background again, and then realizing this is what people were doing and why am I following suit, that is what kind of lit the investment bug in me. Just again, from school, and then you're seeing the real world, and it's like, it's not so by the textbook. And they don't actually teach you how to invest in that retrospect too. They more teach you just how to be just a worker, not an investor, have just one credit card and stuff like this. So investing to me, again, was just something that made sense, and owning because of the numbers of, I can pay for a mortgage that's a lot cheaper than the rent, and it's something that I own versus I'm paying somebody else's mortgage, which essentially is what a rent is. Somebody owns that big building and you're paying rent, or paying their mortgage. So again, just having that background made me want to invest. And like I said, the affordability in Toronto, it makes it very, very hard. You're almost teetering your head above water, but you're still below water. So it was very uncomfortable for me to have to look outside of GTA, since I've always lived in Toronto. I'm born Torontarian. So to even think about leaving Mississauga was very uncomfortable. But like I said, the numbers made sense. Either I stay here and struggle, or I leave and be able to maybe have more savings or have something that's more of value to me versus what I'm paying for here. So again, it was just my background that kind of pushed me in that direction.
That's good. So we have our brother back, Mr. Horace. I think he has gotten into a powerful position where his camera is working.
Oh yeah, I see him now.
Okay.
Welcome, Black brother. So,
Thank you.
from meeting you years ago, and I couldn't see that black crystal ball that you would be doing all of this stuff. Now, let's talk about the people who are thinking, I'm renting right now. I want to get a home. Some of them, this is their first home. Some people had a home. They might have lost a home, sold a home. How can you support? What is some of your things you could say to somebody right now? Because some people, like the new people, let's start with them, who never had a home. What kind of strategy can they employ?
So the most important thing to keep in mind when exploring home ownership is to always remember credit, right? There's three things you want to make sure you maintain: income, credit, right? And down payment. And I'm going to stick to the traditional evaluation process and not necessarily the stuff that the exceptions that we can get to help people along the way. But let's look at the traditional bones of what's required. So credit, the minimum credit, or the preferred credit, I should say, is 680 and up for most lenders. So there are a lot of free credit softwares out there. Borrowell, Equifax has free credit pull reports that you can get to see how your credit looks like, and also to determine what shows up on your credit score. And oftentimes lenders or creditors make mistakes. So you want to be able to monitor your credit over a period of time to ensure that whatever you're using or borrowing out there is accurately being reflected on the system, because that's what lenders are going to use to see whether or not you're worthy in order to give you a mortgage, period. If you've damaged that opportunity, it makes it a lot more difficult. So once you have a 680 beacon score minimum, you can now only come up with 5% of the purchase price. So the government of Canada is trying to incentivize people towards home ownership, and they've been doing that for several decades. So they're saying, we're willing to give you, the average house price right now is $1 million in Ontario, sadly, okay? And that seems very depressing and difficult for a lot of people. It really is. But let's look overall in terms of what that represents in terms of the 5%, at least $75,000. If you come up with $75,000, we're willing to give you a mortgage for the rest, okay? That's what the government is saying. That's a great program for anyone to get into the market. If most people got in 2 years ago, that threshold would have been probably around $30,000 to $50,000. Given what's going on in the market right now, it's changed significantly. Demand for housing has gone up dramatically because people realize it's better to own than to rent. Because by renting, you have no control over your existence in most cases, unless it's a specified property that's geared towards rental, right? But most people want to live in a house, and there's no specialized program unless it's government housing or et cetera that gives you that security over decades or so. Because the landlord you're renting from decides he wants to sell his house or he wants to move in his family, there's a process he can go through to get you out. So there's no security there, right? So that's the key thing why I encourage people towards home ownership. The other thing as well is, how do you build generational wealth through that? I'm going all over the place, but I'm giving general summaries here, and the motivation in terms of why we encourage home ownership and try and put down the bare minimal as possible. 90% of most millionaires, I'm not saying money's a goal for everyone, right? But 90% of millionaires are accumulated through real estate. And the thing is that how we can help our children advance and pursue their goals and their dreams, whether it be through education, how we can also help ourselves if we want to move back home, is leveraging our assets here. So if I bought a house 5 years ago, now that property is valued 3 times. I want to go back home, whether it be Africa, the Caribbean, wherever I want to go, and I want to build a house there. I can use that equity in that property, take out and build my house back home. I don't need to borrow a loan in the Caribbean or Africa at a ridiculous high interest rate, which is what they are over there, right? These are things that we can do because based on the strong housing economy here. So the 5%, go back now to the minimum down payment requirement. So the 5%, right? The government says, we'll give you a mortgage based on that amount only. So that's all you have to come up with. And also you have to come up with a closing cost to show that you can pay for your lawyer fees, land transfer tax, and any other incidentals. And just that represents roughly, for most lenders, 1.5% of the purchase price as well. So once you can show those figures in your account, a minimum of at least 90 days, unless it's gifted or a portion of it's borrowed, and your credit's strong, right? And your income now supports the purchase price, meaning that there's a formula in which the banks measure whether or not you're high risk versus low risk based on how much you're putting down. So if you are 95%, the threshold for most institutions are around 39% GDS, gross debt service, and TDS, total debt service, at 44. They're saying, if you fit within those lines or below, we're going to give you that money to buy that $1 million house. And all you have to do is come up with $75,000 and show you have closing costs. That sounds like a great deal, right? Where else in the world are you going to get a loan of $1 million and all you have to show is $75,000? And where else are you also going to be able to have the opportunity by living in that property based on the current economy and climate of housing in this country for the last decade or more? That value is going up at least 10, 20% per year. So in that instance now, I say to myself, hey, I got in with just 5% down, whether or not I pool my money with my friends and family and borrowed it from whomever, partner, susu, whatever the case is, or wherever. And now I have it. I can now help my kids go to college. I can get a loan against it. Security, because banks love to give you money when you have assets. And they'll give it to you at a much lower rate too than if you buy it, unless you borrow it unsecure. The other thing as well, I can help my kids buy a property for themselves. And be even better, I can leverage that equity in that property. Now it's accumulated. And given the craziness in this market where housing has gone up significantly in such a short period of time, I can use that money to buy another asset and help my retirement, because God in heavens knows CPP and OAS is not going to take care of you in your old age. It's not enough. $15,000 a year cannot scratch the surface. So you have to think of ways how you are going to take care of yourself. And this is one of the many ways I try and teach and educate people. Leverage your asset. You have to live somewhere. At least live somewhere where you can get it back. Because when you're renting, you cannot go to your landlord at the end of the day and say to them, hey, I paid your mortgage for X amount of years. Do you mind just giving back some money just to help me out? Landlord's like, you've been a great tenant. Thank you very much. But you helped my family accumulate their wealth, build their generational wealth. But no, we're not giving you back any money. And you're stuck. He wants his family to move in, he's going to kick you out. So that's the general.
Yeah, but I'm going to stop you there and let the people ruminate. I want them to ruminate on what you said. Then I'm going to ask Ashley to put on her banker hat, put on that hat for me, put it on. So he said some nice things here, but I'm going to go with some other things with you, because I'm going to look at you straight in the eye. So what he said sounded good, but guess what happened with the credit card? Back in the day, they gave the credit card out to us. We thought the credit card was money. So we went and we spent the credit card, but we didn't pay for the damn credit. So now our credit rating, I'm sure you saw some of it. I'm afraid of you, you did your, now our credit can't go. We're not even a 680. We're not even a 480. We're like a minus. How can now I deal with the credit? What choices do I have now? I'm going in the village because I deal with a lot of my families. Some of them are in some of these things. This used to be Metro housing. Now it's called Toronto Communities Housing. And they don't own those places, but they've been lived there generation upon generation. Yeah. But we need to fix credit. How can we do it?
For sure. I'll just touch up on that, but Horace, please feel free to elaborate on it, because it's not my expertise of credit. So from the bank's perspective, at the retail level, so that's like the branch, what we would do to encourage people to help build their credit. If you're going to get a credit card, that's fine, but you have to have that money already in hand. So let's just say you wanted to buy something that was $10. You should know already how you're going to pay that $10 back. The smart way is to really just have it in your account already and just use your credit card, because then you're helping build your credit and you can just pay it back. When you educate yourself more on how credit works, it's funny how in North America, how credit is. In other societies like Sweden, for instance, you already have the credit. It's for you to ruin your credit by not making payments and stuff like that. Here, you have to build your credit. So you have to be in debt, pay it back, and that's how you build your credit. And correct me if I'm wrong, Horace. So you kind of have to have the credit card and be paying it back, because then it shows that, hey, you know what? She's paying the $10 back each time. Let's give her $20 this time. And it just keep increasing. Because again, don't spend what you don't have in your bank account, or don't spend something you don't know how you're going to pay it back. So if your credit card is only $1,000 and you only make $300 a month, then you probably can't spend up to $1,000 because you can't pay it back. So then you're already hurting your credit.
But let me say this to Horace, then I'm going to go over to Horace. Listen, my credit is already bad. And that's where I'm getting to, because remember those credit cards, we use it up. A lot of people in my village use it up, and now, the credit is bad. So what I'm thinking is there any future for that my village that has bad quote unquote credit?
Absolutely, and everything's all about time, right? I think for us earlier on, and I just want to backtrack something historically before we get into the credit aspect of what you could do. We never talked finances in our family. We never talked about money. When there were challenges, we never educated our kids to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is how we can help each other build and correct it. And when I help families actually repair their stuff, perhaps if they've been in bad financial situations or had bad credit and repaired it, whatever, I said, educate your kids. Don't keep that private. Share them so they can pass on that knowledge so they are aware that credit is important. Finances is important, okay? That's the key thing. We, as a community, we tend to be quiet about certain things because we don't want people to know our business until it's all out there. We have no choice, right? And I'm saying education is the key. We can help our younger generations or our friends and share our experience with them. We can help alleviate and address some of their challenges because everybody's very kind of private, but there's so much you can contain before everyone's going to know your business. So just ask for help. That's number one. So in terms of people who had bad credit, so the good thing is that the system is somewhat forgiving, but over time. So 6 to 7 years, a lot of this stuff will fall off eventually. But nobody wants to wait that long, right? So much is going to happen in that time period. So you have to do a quick assessment and say to yourself, how much debt do I owe, right? So there's constructive consumer repayment programs out there, services. So if you owe like $5,000, $10,000, do not file for bankruptcy for that. That's ridiculous. Don't file consumer proposal because that's going to be horrible. Creditors look at it very poorly, and it takes time to repair those. And we're talking about people who are just trying to buy, right? Not if you have a house already, which there's different strategies for that if you have bad credit. So my thing is with that is that there are programs and services where you can do constructive repayment, where it doesn't impact your credit adversely. You pay down that aggressive credit card until you eliminate it completely. A lot of it also requires discipline. That's the truth. Discipline. Live within your means. Don't go partying. Don't go drinking. Don't go Christmas shopping, all that kind of stuff. I remember one experience where I had to advance someone some funds, private loans, and they were doing cash money and all that kind of stuff. And then Christmas came around and we're trying to refinance and consolidate all their debts. And lo and behold, when we pulled the credit, the cash money was not there. It was low. Sorry, it was low. And then when we're about to get the final documents done and the lender pulled it, they saw they took out $2,000 for cash money before closing. The lender's like, this person is not disciplined. There's a problem when you go to cash money. And the lender brings it back to my attention. I said to the person, why are you going to cash money? They're like, oh, Christmas is coming up and I want to get the kids them some gifts and stuff like that. Stupidness. We can do without certain things. Short-term sacrifices for long-term goals. We don't need the nicest shoes. We don't need the nicest cars. Just focus on the assets, not the liabilities. So my thing is it requires discipline, and that's the bottom truth. So you make those sacrifices and you pay off those bad debts over whether it be structured payments, until you clear it off, okay? If you're not gonna wait the 6-7 year period for it to fall off the system, all right? That's what you do. And once you're doing that, you're doing saving aggressively at the same time. And you rebuild your credit. If credit card companies are not willing to give you like unsecured credit, there's called prepaid, where you can establish, you give them $500, $1,000, and they will rebuild your credit with that money, as long as you pay the service fees or whatever it is monthly to reestablish your credit so your score goes higher and higher and higher. What about credit utilization is this? I always tell people, whatever your limit is, try and stay at least 30% to the limit, okay? So if it's $1,000, don't go for 700. That will boost your score automatically in the system. It's a formula that they use, but it also, that's part of hacking or gaming the system so that the numbers show up much higher. Okay, if you pay it off in a lump sum, it will increase your score even more dramatically. So those are just the little things you can do as well. But the main thing you do depends on the amount that you owe. Don't declare bankruptcy because that's going to hit your credit score significantly, and definitely don't do a consumer proposal as well. All right. Main thing is engage in discipline, focus, and just pay it off and adjust your lifestyle. If it means that you're not going to go out for a year or so doing whatever, or you're not going to travel, or you're not going to buy whatever, focus, set your goals, and just do it.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask Sister Jennifer, Brother Sean, if they can look in the chat and see if there's any questions, because I think I keep seeing something from the sideways, like in the chat. Can somebody do check in the chat and see if there's any question, because we're going to take them as we go. So while we're looking to see if there's any question in the chat, I want to now say, so we fixed the credit. I paid it off. I recognize about the property now. I'm trying to invest, but I like Cornwall. I like the fact that I might be able to get in the short-term rental. Can you tell me, like, why Cornwall? Why should I get in there? And why should I even contact you?
Okay. Well, you don't have to come to Cornwall, but like I was mentioning before, it is very affordable right now compared to. You can get a 3-bedroom home with a backyard for like 300,000, whereas with GTA right now, I don't even know where you can get something for that price. It's crazy. So like you may have to leave your comfortability zone to afford to buy elsewhere. So it can be Barrie, it could be Caledon. I think St. Catharines is now popping, just outside of GTA, kind of. I opted to come to Cornwall because I have a relative that moved from GTA to Ottawa. And so I'm only an hour and 10 minutes away from Ottawa. So that's why I opted to move to Cornwall, only because I didn't want to move from one big city to another big city and deal with the same issues. It didn't make sense. That being said, we have established ourselves. We have a business here for short-term rental uses. My business name is Ashna AirBnB Property Management. So we manage Airbnb properties for homeowners here in Cornwall and in surrounding areas. I'm sure all know what Airbnb is, but just in case you don't, Airbnb is just a platform that we use. It's already been established. And it's not only for traveling for vacation reasons. We are integrating or educating the locals here that it's for short-term use, period. So it could be for renovations, it can be for extra room for family coming to stay. So we're also trying to build generational wealth with these property owners. Historically, they would more lean towards tenancy, which is still fine, but we're now giving them another option. They can do, if they buy a multi, they can do a split. They can have a tenant and they can also do Airbnb, which is what I would manage. I just physically need the property and it has to be already furnished. And then we manage everything else in terms of turnovers and guest interactions and such. So we are educating Cornwall. The other uses that you can use for your homes while you're waiting for the equity to build, it doesn't have to be the historic tenancy, which a lot of people would do here. But now, like I said, with our business, they're able to see other options to exhaust their property until they're ready to maybe sell it or give it to their children or what have you.
Wow. So if somebody is saying they would like you to drop your digits, your 9 digits inside the chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because they like to collect. So while you're doing that, I'm going to go over here and saying, so you talked about equity just now, Mr. Dockery. But here it is. I need you to break it down. So I have a house. Now my house, I bought it for maybe 400,000, but I guess I could put it on the market for 500 now and I'll get probably 800 for it. What can I do? And I need you to break it down still. When you say equity and all of that, could you break it down so I know exactly what you mean? That if I want to buy another investment property, how can I do it?
Yeah, no, good question. So if you have a property already, and let's say it's worth $1 million, but you have a mortgage of $400,000, the lender will allow you to borrow up to 80% of that property's value. So up to 800,000, you can pull equity up to that point, right? So if your existing mortgage is 500, you'll be able to pull out $300,000 from it, as long as you qualify. So the 3 important criteria, which will in refinance is mainly 2: credit, equity position, and income, ability to pay. So as long as you can show that, the lender was willing to give you up to 80% of that house's value. We're talking about A-side lenders, of course, the banks, et cetera, and those sort of institutions, right? And so once you get those funds, you can essentially use that to leverage that to buy a property. And you'd have to qualify for that particular property once you pull out that equity based on the you're being able to qualify for the new purchase. So there's factors that will go into the qualification or the financing process, which would be you must qualify to take out the equity. And then now you must qualify for the new property with the additional debt that you took out as well. So there's different products out there. And here's what I tell people. Look, banks, the big five only represent a small sector of the mortgage and financing sector. There's a slew of other lenders that you'll never know about unless you deal with the mortgage broker. And they have products that cater to you based on your financial need, your credit situation, and what you need in order to get where you need to get done. Right? And this is where education is key. So you can also use that information for your benefit. There are investor style mortgages, right? For property investors and those sort of individuals. So the key thing is that we try to figure out how we can pair you up with the right lender based on your immediate needs at the lowest, best interest rate and price as well. Okay. So that's pretty much how we go about doing that.
Wonderful. So let me go back to this. Actually, did somebody say something? Sister Ashley, so
Sorry, yes.
Do you speak French?
No, I do not.
So I was gonna say, tell me your number in French, but could you tell me your number in English? Some people want to write it down. Did you?
Yeah, so I just put information on the, excuse me, on the messenger.
Oh, you didn't put it in the chat?
Well, yeah, in the chat, I did, yes.
Okay, good. So please, people are asking, but I just want to say, this is what they told me to do, a reclaimer, / disclaimer. The guests that we have today, if you choose to do business, everybody need to do their own due diligence. CANCC, Bese, Saka is not recommending any service. I don't want nobody come back and say, listen, I called Mr. Dockery, I called Ashley, and don't do it. Do your own research. You know, I always invite people with credibility, but however, I'm not participating in the business. I just want to take my reclaim.
Yeah, 138. Yeah.
So, people, could you mutify yourself?
It's the toilet paper and the...
Yeah, we gotta get some mutification. All right, so wonderful. So, I want to talk to Ashley about this investment now. Which is the best place? Is there a best place for me to, let's say I wanted to do an invest? I don't want to live in Cornwall. I'm making it upfront, clear. I don't want to move to Cornwall, only if there's 10,000 Black people there. But but I don't mind the price point. Yeah. I want to come to you and I said, could you operate this Airbnb for me, this short-term rent? What are some of the things you're gonna tell me in terms of purchase, location, and all of that?
Well, I can't tell you where you want to purchase. If you give me an idea of where you would want to, then I would give you a comprehensive email as to who your comps would be, what we might be able to market your property for, and brand it for as well, and if location would be an issue or not.
So I'm gonna push back at this point. I just want to apologize to everybody listening and watching. I'm gonna push back on my guests. So I don't know Cornwall, you do. So what I'm saying at this juncture, if I want to do that, like, so I wouldn't know exactly. So what are some of the location from your expertise that you would encourage novice like me to the Cornwall region? You know, from your experience.
Oh, so to entice you to come to Cornwall, you mean, or?
No, I want to make money. I don't want to be enticed. I just want to know from your perspective, which is the best place you see in terms of location where we can purchase that would make, because I want you to run my Airbnb. So I want to know from you, which is the best place in terms of location.
Location within Cornwall?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have beautiful waterfront as well, and beautiful bike paths. Cornwall is known for cultivating or conserving its nature. So there's a lot of properties around the waterfront, which would be highly sought for in terms of guest amenities. Also, anywhere in the north would be also feasible or desirable as well. So you're looking at Brookdale area. Brookdale is one of the main streets here. You can come off the highway and go right on it. So again, that would be something that's more flexible for guests, that the highway is not too far from there. Also, I'm just trying to think here quickly. McConnell area as well. McConnell area as well. There's a hospital on that road as well. And Sydney as well. Sydney has really beautiful character homes, which would also be desirable for guest stays too.
So this COVID has been a very unique situation for you.
Yeah.
How did you? Because I'll be honest with you, until I heard you speak the other day about that, you pivoted, right? I was thinking, boy, this is a tough year for Airbnb, because of COVID, right? People are not traveling. Could you explain to the audience how you end up pivoting and still be able to survive it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the tourism industry took a big hit with everything being shut down. And we really didn't know what was going to happen. And so it was more of figuring out, well, what else could a short-term rental be used for? So again, stepping away from the historic idea of, it's for vacation purposes. And again, now reinventing itself or educating people on the other purposes or uses of short-term. So in our verbiage, we like to state for our listing that it can be used for work stays. It can be used for family stays. So we put it or integrate it in our guests' minds of, well, what else it can be used for. So we took it upon ourselves to reinvent what the short-term historic vacation use for short Airbnb was before. So with that, Cornwall is it's a hub city. So you have Ottawa an hour and 10 minutes away, Montreal an hour and 20 minutes away or so. Then you have the New York border down the road, actually. So there's reasons we have a lot of guests that come here just to come here for work. We have crews that stay here for maybe a month or two at properties just because they're working and doing some infrastructure. We have guests that come here that need to train for navigation reasons. We have guests here who come here to visit family or who want to just stay here because they don't want to drive all the way from Ottawa to Toronto or wherever their destination is going to. So it's kind of cool to be here and you figure out little things about it that it's like a hidden gem. I like to say that. And our goal is to put it on the map so people know Cornwall and where we are and what you can stay here to do.
Wow, you see it? I knew you had it. I knew you could sell Cornwall. I'm not telling anybody there to go down there and live because I cannot protect you. I'm going to put you now because I just put you. I want to apologize to my guest, Mr. Dockery. No, you're on the hot seat, sir. Community. I want to know. We are African. We're tired of the banking system. It's racist. It's all of this credit is the system out of slavery and the way they treat Black people. We want to build for self. No, my mortgage and my real estate, developer. I want you to put those hats on for me. Can we come together and do land trust and build on property and build Black communities again? Is it possible? And if it is, or is it challenging?
I think there's a lot of challenges, but it's not impossible. I think what oftentimes a lot of people embark on is the larger stuff versus the smaller stuff, and build that up to be able to achieve or take on the larger stuff. And I'm a person who believes in making multiple small steps that accumulate into big moves. Because the problem is I find a lot of people is that they try and take on the huge stuff, and when it fails, everyone disintegrates. But when you make small goals and achieve them, you can now pursue the next big goal and the next big goal. I think in terms of African or Black communities is that we have to deal with your local need, right? So if we can be collective in our mindset and say, how do we get more people in home ownership, whether it be in the GTA or near close to the GTA, whether it be in Cornwall as an investment, that's an easy step we can do. 5% is the minimum requirement. We don't need to have millions of dollars to buy a land and try and accumulate and figure out who's going to be in charge of the board, who's going to trust to deal with the finances, who's going to do this and do that, who wants to be leader, who doesn't want to be leader, all that kind of politics that comes with that stuff. The more people we can get at the beginning stages, the more we can leverage to do bigger things. So my thing is that also reorient our focus and say, people need shelter. Let's go for those particular achievable goals, right? Whether it be through a SUSU down payment program or partner, whatever the case is. How many more families can we get? 10 to 5? My goal each year is to get at least minimum 15 Black families in homeownership who necessarily would not have had the opportunity without our services or support. That's usually my target. I try and do that. On the other side of it as well, on the investment side, is that people who have assets and want to necessarily build, educate them, show them how they can do that kind of thing. And now I'm hearing from Ashna about Cornwall being a possibility. I remember driving out there. I might have different thoughts, but you've piqued my curiosity, and I'm excited to explore.
Come on down, stay at one of our properties.
Exactly. I'm always looking for new investments, always. So now I'm definitely looking at that. So thank you for sharing that informative stuff. I really appreciate that. So going back to in terms of your question, let's focus on the achievables, right? How can we get more people in? So we look at Black communities right now, neighborhoods where we have a large segment of the Black population. Durham, we have a significant pockets of Brampton, stuff like that. How many people can we get in there? One of the things I tell my clients, my Black sellers who are selling their home, our goal always, can we get a Black buyer in? So if I have Black realtors who clients, we push them, say, hey, you have a client who's interested in this? We would love to sell it to a Black family, because that's how we keep our presence in neighborhood. Now we're being taken out by other communities. Affordability, not organized and prepared, showing people how they can get in, right? Through whatever strategies and stuff like that. So our focus is to always try and figure out how can we help each family so it can make a bigger, representation or reflect a wider number, so we can now leverage those numbers to do other bigger things now. Okay, and that's the goal, I think.
Okay, so that's definitely thing, and I'm opening up the line. So what I'm asking people to do is put your hand up, and I'm asking somebody to, Jennifer or Brother Sean, if you could just let me know if there's somebody who have a hand up. In the meantime, who have a question, a statement to make, that's important, so we could continue the reasoning. I also want to, while we're doing that, who's that? Andreen, could you come on, unmute yourself, and go ahead and ask.
Hi, everyone. This question is for Horace, as well as for Ashley. I'm interested in selling or thinking of selling my home, maybe purchasing something else, moving outside of the GTA. But a major concern for me is just being in a community, because I have young children and I don't want to be in a community where we're ostracized, or it's not even so much for me, but for my children, right? I did pose this question in the chat. Do you have any suggestions in terms of communities outside of the GTA that are putting quotation Black friendly, so that we could consider, more affordable housing outside of the GTA for Black people?
So Ashley, you want to go ahead first, or?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I haven't done research in that aspect wherever I've lived, I sought out to research if they were already Black communities. It was more for me to go, coming to Cornwall, I didn't want to just research, because the research actually, looking back, was quite wrong. And talking to people too. So it's really free to go to these places that you feel that you want to perhaps buy a property, and just walk through, go to stores, see how the neighborhoods are, see how the stores are. And you have to feel comfortable in making that decision. I asked my realtor bluntly, are there a lot of Black people here? And she was taken back by that, but I said, I need to know. I need to know what I'm getting myself into, because I'm not going to buy and then want to leave again. And the mayor at that time actually was a Black woman. So, you know, those little indicators for me showed me that, you know, they're okay with Black people. For that matter, there's a lot of diversity over the past 4 years. There's more East Indians here, that there are more Blacks here, primarily or more so Haitians, because they speak French. So it's easy to transition here, especially if they come from Quebec.
You meant Haiti?
Sorry, Haiti. Yes, you did correct me on that last time. We are getting a lot of, I don't say a lot, but we are getting a few people from Toronto as well. So to be fair, it is growing to be more diverse than it was 4 years ago. Are there some instances? I personally haven't dealt with them. But I mean, I come from Toronto, so I kind of know how to kind of sense, you know, what may possibly happen and not be around certain people. For the most part, everyone here has been really community-based here. They've been really welcoming. My daughter personally has flourished since coming here. And like I said, I'm not trying to paint an unrealistic painting of this city. There may be one or two instances where, you know, there might be a racial instance, but for the most part, I can walk down the street with my head held high and not have to worry. Even easier here than it was in Toronto, just because, I mean, you don't have to worry too much about people trying to, not saying that this happened on an occurrence in Toronto getting robbed or such, but there was an instance where in Toronto, there was a part where people were stealing phones out of people's hands. And I think it was like iPhones, and that was happening when people were just walking down, looking at their phones. So like crime rate and stuff like that, it's not the same. So, you know, in terms of racial parts here, people are very welcoming for the most part. And I haven't had to fear for my livelihood or anything personally. So.
Thank you for that. Horace, you want to say something?
Yeah, Andreen, what city are you at right? Where are you at right now? What city?
I'm in Brampton West.
Okay. And where are you planning? What direction would you prefer to go? Hello, can you hear me?
Unmute yourself, Andrew.
Oh, sorry.
What direction would you prefer?
Right, I'm looking west.
Okay.
And at one point I was even considering outside of Ontario, but you know, because I still have family in Ontario, I mean, that would be the most drastic move in terms of outside of Ontario.
So if you're like 2 hours or 3 hours, it doesn't really matter for you where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, if you're preferring to go west, I would say a lot of the local communities based on affordability are changing dramatically. So places such as Woodstock, you find more of our community going out there. There's actually online communities building up where black communities to help sort of get people who are in those communities connect with each other with services and support systems in place. London as well. London, those places are pricey, but right before those areas like Woodstock, even Paris, you might get some sort of large segment of our community going out there based on affordability. A lot of new developments that are occurring out there, but you're not going to get the numbers that you're going to see in the GTA. And to be honest, here's the thing: you may have great neighbors, but your kids are going to face different challenges in the school system, where kids are are more uncensored, and the system may have their biases on how they treat you. My main thing is you want to focus a lot with what's your support mechanism in place outside those particular institutions nearby that you can feel safe and also garner support as well. So I know Woodstock is not crazy pricing like we see elsewhere. In terms of London, perhaps Paris, Ontario is pricey now. I don't know if you're interested in Hamilton. Hamilton is, Hamilton
I'm open to that too.
Yeah, Hamilton is growing. The prices are jumping significantly because it's closer to the GTA. But a lot of our community members are going there. Okay, and where affordabilities and numbers are going, you're gonna have better support system in there, whether it be food, advocacy, all that kind of stuff. So there's some good pockets around those neighborhoods. My main thing would be based on your budget, right? And what you want to
Okay.
maximize mainly when you get in, what type of properties that you want in those areas and what's available. We always get stuff that's coming pre-market oftentimes because we have either investors who are renovating, fixing up properties, or we have sellers who are looking to sell, and we try and pair them with people from the community because we want to keep our presence in these neighborhoods. We're losing that.
So
Believe me,
what
I tell you, home
what I'm
ownership
gonna
is a fleeting dream for many of us.
so what I'm
I'll
gonna
stop.
do.
Thank you.
Yeah,
No problem.
I'm gonna keep it moving. So what I would suggest to folks is this: two things. Speak to 1 to 3 real estate agent, brokers, lawyers every time, and connect with, so Horace is here. You gave your information out, because those questions is really thing. White supremacy, racism happens all areas of the city, all areas. The further you are away, the more susceptible you are. So you have to make sure that you have a phone call to Brother Sankofa on a bus, right? So don't go down there and start a black business. If you want to move down to Woodstock or Hoodknock, don't act African like me, because if you do, you might feel something. So just remember that. Always talk with 3, 4 different people to connect. And if you need to reach out to my brother, please do. So we have Brother Michael Charles, then we have Jennifer, then we have Nikisha.
Yes, thanks so much for both of our brothers and sister with the information shared so far. I just want to get the sense if you could share, both of you or either one of you, please could share a little bit about, a lot of us have intentions in terms of doing some sort of investment in real estate at a group level. What are some of those dynamics, some of the things we can bring together to make stuff like that happen? So, for example, if you want to get some piece of land and build afresh, or even get cost-effective properties and renovate them and do something with them, how do we? What are some of the things we can put in place to do them as a group?
Horace, I think that's more your forte. I can only speak about what I've seen. I just know culturally we don't do it. If you look at East Indians or Asians, you see a bunch of people in one house, and then they move to a different house. Then they move to a different house. I'm not saying that that's what we have to do, but it's been happening, and that's how they have all these houses. And you're like, how are they able to afford it? Because they're pooling their money, they're working, and then when another person's able to buy their property, then they're doing the same thing. I personally would suggest doing that with maybe not that extreme where you have to live in the same home, but I would personally suggest that if you have good, people to invest with who are serious, then I would say, it makes it easier, because then you guys are all going in, you have something stipulated saying what everyone brings in, and in terms of share, and it's a win-win. So sorry, Horace, you can jump in.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for the question. There's a couple of things. There's different legal structures, right? Limited liability partnerships, where you can form. You can do a holding company with shareholders agreements, etc., where you can issue shares for percentage of ownership based on contribution, which you obviously set out based on the price of the property. But it's definitely something that's doable. The main thing is the structures and a long-term strategy. We call it land banking as well, right? Where a group of people will buy land and just sit on it and let the price value go up or accumulate over a year, then they decide to dispose of it at a profit at some point in time. So there are particular structures or systems available to facilitate that. The main thing is to find the willing participants who are interested in ensuring that they're willing to put those their funds or resources for those investments. But again, make sure the people that you're involving yourself with are well informed. There are some particular regulatory guidelines depending on the numbers and the price point that must be followed, right? It's definitely doable. It's definitely doable. We've done similar stuff in terms of housing, rental properties, etc. So definitely in terms of land banking, etc., things like that, we can definitely do that. And if you want in terms of knowing how more in detail, we can definitely help organize that. All right.
Thank you. We're gonna go to Jennifer, then Nikisha, then Ren.
Okay, very quickly, I am very, very, very interested in that. And actually, I was trying to find something in BC, and I was hoping to meet some, I've been communicating with people, hoping that they would like maybe purchase something in BC that, that maybe even if it started out as a cooperative or something, just that we all could do something. Nevertheless, that's not my question. I live in Montreal, and I have a property here. I have a triplex. And due to COVID, since the government had said that if someone cannot afford to pay their rent, the property owner had no recourse. So I just left the property vacant because I just couldn't deal with the stress of all of it. So for 2 years or almost 2 years, one of my properties have been vacant. Nevertheless, besides Airbnb, I was just wondering if you had any other ideas of to generate income. The property that I have, one of them is a 6.5, and I don't see myself getting its value of what 2,000 here, between 15 and 2,000 for 6.5 per month. But I don't know what else can be done, even though it's close to the hospital. I don't know.
Are you swaying away from Airbnb? Like, is that even an option for you? Or because you kind of said you want to know what other options were there aside from Airbnb. So is that like not an option at all?
No. It is an option. I just didn't want to get into an Airbnb because now there's all these other things going on with that. There's a lot of there's things going on with the government, and that's one question. The other question, very quickly, was about living in one province and owning in another province. Where do you do your taxes, or who's responsible? Like, how does that work? Because here in Quebec, taxes, the whole tax system is very expensive in comparison to other provinces, confusing, whatever. So if I was to move to another province, how do I do that? I do my taxes for Quebec in the other province, or, because I would like to live in.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll just talk about the other options aside from Airbnb. And sorry, Horace, if you want to answer the other questions pertaining to owning in different provinces and stuff like that, if you have knowledge on that. So aside from Airbnb, what we've also looked into, what we haven't exhausted as yet, is location rentals. That's a thing as well. So I don't know where your properties are kept, but sorry, you say you're in Montreal, right?
That's right. It's kind of downtown. It's not.
Yeah.
Downtown.
So, even better. Okay. So Montreal, in my opinion, downtown is beautiful. You have the cobblestones, you have the beautiful architecture. Are you somewhere in that area, like?
No, I'm a little bit west of that area, but I'm close to a metro station. Okay.
So again, looking at your location and how you may have your rental property staged, you would have to furnish it at that point. What it is, location rentals is people would rent there for either meetings, for photo shoots, for team building exercises, and it's just like a flat fee for a few hours. So whereas with Airbnb, you have to accumulate all that through nightly stays, you may be able to capture that in a 4-hour location rental. So let's just say you had it, furnished, very trendy, something that, people could take pictures, maybe influencers would probably pay just to do stuff there. So there's so many things location rentals actually offer. So that's another thing. And again, I'm still learning, so I can't tell you too much, but to me, it's really exciting. So I'm trying to look into that so we can do that with our properties as well. So we're always trying to exhaust our properties for our homeowners, because I don't make money unless they do. So if we can do something like that on the side, which is what I'm trying to educate myself on right now, then that's something that we will be looking into. I hope that answers your question. Sorry.
Very interesting.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to Horace, but just for the record, I don't know if Horace, you're an accountant, but I know she needs to talk to an
I
accountant.
always
Then
do my
I-
disclosures. Yeah, I always say talk to your accountant based on that. But just generally on surface stuff, the things you might consider is that most of your taxing system is based on what you consider property real taxes anyway, is based on what you consider as your primary location, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, you can operate anywhere in the country, right? And then wherever you want to claim as your permanent resident. But if you're employed by a company in Montreal, your source taxes will come in from that particular company locally. But wherever you want to declare with, unless you can work remotely, of course, your new property could be considered your primary residence, and that may be the place in which you want to declare your taxes mainly in order to offset whatever expenses, but more or less take tax advantage based on the location that you're living in versus Montreal. But talk to your accountant.
Yeah, and she can connect with anybody. And just for the record, when you sell a property, that's when you should start thinking about capital gains that you have to pay. In the meantime, talk to an accountant. We're gonna go to Nikisha, and then we're gonna go to Ren, and then Tisha.
Greetings. Thank you so much. Let me come on camera and say hi to everybody. Hi, I'm Nikisha. So I think both Jennifer and someone else had touched on this in terms of cultivating a co-living community, which is something I've been investigating and researching to seriously cultivate and establish as a holding company, as you said, Horace, that you can do, to establish that with other like-minded people to cultivate that eco community that is Afrocentric, but also holistic and natural. So we're not just co-living together, we're also living off the land. We're able to cultivate our own foods, grow our own vegetables, fruits and foods, and be able to live sustainably on that property, and it be a long-term community that can build and grow and develop. So that's part of my personal mission and journey and vision going forward in the near future. In the immediate future, my question I have is kind of partially directed towards Ashley, but also towards Horace as well, is she brought up short-term rental. My partner and I had been looking into that because we're transitional. He's on the other side of the border, I'm here. And right now I'm in the process of putting all my stuff into storage, go into a short-term rental because we are looking at having spaces and property on either side of the border. So we're going to be moving around, going back and forth. So we need something that is intermediary to have a shelter space so that we can then, as we're going into the next phase, we have something intermediary going forward. So my question is short-term rental. One, is it worth it? Because it is not cheap. Should we stay in space, stay in place and then just save and or move forward in that direction? So thank you.
Yeah, no, they're awesome. And no, so what you're proposing to do is it's not unheard of. So if you're planning on staying, are you planning on staying there month to month, for a long duration, or are you going back and forth frequently?
So it would be month to month.
Okay.
That would be what we'd be doing month to month for a period of minimum 6 months.
Right. Okay. So what you can do at that point, instead of paying the nightly stay for each night, which is why you're saying it's expensive, you can explain to the host, you can stay there for the duration, for maybe a week, just to see if you even want to stay there, right? But as you're booking it, you can tell the host your intention as well. And simply say, listen, I do want to stay here for maybe a few more months, maybe up to 6 months. Is there a negotiable rate that you can offer? And then see what they say from that.
Okay.
Instead of booking the full 6 months at one reservation, just book for a week. Like I said, you haven't even gone there. You don't even know if you even like it yet, right? And then you're committed to, not saying that you couldn't cancel, but I don't know what policies they have in place. And then you may lose out on what you already paid for. So the safe route, again, would be to book just for a week and let the host know your intention initially. So that way they can kind of maybe hopefully proactively offer you something. That way they can just book it or block it for you with already the agreements of the negotiated rate that you be paying. So it's worth it in that sense because
would
it's
be
not
under
held
Airbnb
to
or
a-
separate like, agreement.
Sorry? What was that? Sorry.
I was saying, would that be under the Airbnb agreement? Because would that
Yes, it
have to be
would.
under
So-
the Airbnb agreement?
Yes, so it would be something that you would discuss through Airbnb Messenger. So it's all, I don't say recorded, but it's there for you to refer to. It would be something that you discuss with the host only through there. I would never suggest you speak to them outside of Airbnb platform. It just makes things a lot harder for both parties. So always have that discussion or a recap of a verbal discussion on Airbnb Messenger. So it's stipulated that you're there for that duration of time for that price. So what happens is they have to offer you a special offer based on the amount that you guys agree on for that duration of the 6 months that you want to stay there for. So that's how it works. It's quite easy if you're upfront with the host, with your intention, and then I guess I stay for a few nights just to see if you really want to stay there, and then just go from there. But if you book all the 6 months, it'll be harder for you to kind of recoil back what you want to get back from it. Because if you paid for it, then they're gonna be like, well, you already paid for it. You can clearly afford it. So always try to discuss that beforehand and as soon as possible. As soon as you do like the place, just discuss it with them.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that, Nikisha. We're gonna move to Ren. Ren,
Okay.
could you come in?
Hi there. Sorry, I'm just starting my video, just trying to keep it uniform. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Hi, Ashley and Horace, and everybody else. I'm just here listening in. Sorry I came in late, but I did have some questions. In a little bit of a comment, I guess, because I have my hand in a few different things, but I'm thinking towards the future. So what's going on in the GTA in the future, how our community is building, and what we're trying to do to ensure our generational wealth and opportunities and so on. And I know a lot of us are looking outside the GTA for, home ownership and co-ownership and so on and so forth, which are great ideas. Even the location rentals, I was watching a video on that too. I think from what I've seen so far, everyone's on the same page and has the same idea, and we want to make sure that we're okay, right? Because we're going through so many challenges in these times, right? So I have a few different things that I'm basically exploring, and one thing I want to explore, if possible, is Black run and Black owned long-term care homes for our elderly in our senior community. I mean, my parents are getting to that age, and I'm like, I don't really want to put them anywhere like that if it comes down to it. But if it so happens, I have one daughter, I have one child, and I think about, oh my God, when I'm like 79, 80, it's going to be maybe my one child trying to take care of me. But if there was like a reputable place that I know is Black run, Black owned, our people are the staff, it's fractional ownership or whatever it may be, that might be something we could look into, right? Like, it's hard because a lot of our community is like, no, I never put my mother there, or whatever it may be. And I know that other communities, they figure it out and they make it work. And even if it wasn't for our community and we owned one fractionally or something, and there's a lot of private long-term care homes right now. There's funding for it, there's grants and stuff for it. Providing a community service, a big chunk of the population is retiring and aging, and the baby boomers are this many, so whatever they need, we need to follow, right, to a certain extent. So there's that. I'm looking future, like I have clients that are having difficulties finding senior housing. It doesn't even have to be long-term care, it could just be seniors buildings and so on. There's a lot of nepotism happening, there's a lot of taking over of boards and staff, and I mean, try to get in anywhere and you might see, or try to do an application with somebody and you could see how long the wait lists are and the difficulties with getting affordable senior housing or affordable senior care, especially for our community. And we have, you know, I think we're special. I think it's good enough to say that we're special. We can treat ourselves that way, right? So I'm thinking, is that a possibility to look into that? My second thing would be, I know that there are privately owned like mental health facilities or group homes and residential kind of rooming homes, right? There could be Black focused and Black staff, like by us, for us, run, you know, we take care of our people or our youth or our people who are having challenges and not getting the right care and service in the mainstream. We do it ourselves and still make money, provide a service and so on, right? So, and then overseas, I don't know if I know anybody here, but I'm always like, what can we do overseas? Because I mean, even just for example, in DR, from what I know of, their properties are like 50,000, 75,000, yada, yada. And they have a big expat community from North America, like Americans and Canadians and so on. So, and they have the same thing, Airbnb, yada, yada. It's just hard to travel. I know with all the restrictions and whatever's going on, it's uncertain. But if there's any way on this call, any one of you professionals can speak to at least maybe like the long-term, like the seniors' needs, because I mean, we're all going to need that at some point. It'd be nice if we could all retire in the Caribbean, but that's not always a reality, right? And then we want to take care of who's already here. If it's something that we can put a project together, like I'm trying to do in my own, and I still need to reach out, but like a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan to see what can be built. The Asian community has a few different Asian specific almost care homes, and they're smart. I can't hate them for that, right? So
okay.
yeah.
So here's the thing. So I'm looking for the question, right? And it sounds as if you want to be part of a group to look into feasibility. I'm going to use the word feasibility. By the way, there are some people who own those homes here already.
Yeah.
So I remember the last time I was at Brampton City Hall. I was in Brampton. This lady, you know, they had some issues. They were trying to shut her down in a particular area. I think she had a house, right? And so you're asking about feasibility. So let me ask Mr. Dockery first. You're in terms of communities.
I wouldn't say feasibility. I know it's done. I know it can be done. I know people do it.
I'm talking about you, because you're asking the question.
Yeah, okay, so my question is there a professional or leaders that would be able to help me with my goal, or if there's anybody that's interested to kind of organize and run something like that?
I mean, I think that there are people, but you have to look at it first from a business model, right? So the goal is ideally you want a Black care facility for elderly. That's it in the summary. Am I right?
Yeah, and it would be like seniors housing too. It doesn't have to be seniors who need care. It could just be, okay, you're 55 and up and you qualify. We've got these buildings.
Okay, so Black housing for elderly. So they're not going to live in traditional condos or housing. They're going to be in a facility where they can get assistance if they need, right? That's most what senior cares are. Limited, but sometimes more in depth. There's different ranges. Correct?
Yeah, that would be one thing. Like if it was if a project is to ensure that there is housing for seniors, it could be many branches. It could be supportive care. You know, some seniors don't need that much supportive care, but we have like a network of units that maybe a triplex, or the lady said she has a unit in Montreal or something, right? If there was something available for exclusively.
Yeah, you didn't care.
Okay, so essentially you're looking at my approach would be looking at something like that as a business, right? So if you want to, it doesn't have to be an undertaking that's very complex, such as it could be somewhere where you get a group of people who buy a house, almost like a group home. and say, we're going to cater to people in our community and we're going to put it out there. Let's see what kind of funding we can get, whether it be public funding or private. And something that like that is achievable when we oversimplify it, right? So essentially you can find a regular house and turn it into perhaps 2-story or a bungalow or a back split.
Like a
and
Victorian house that has a room. Yeah.
So you can have either a room accommodation or apartment style where you can have multi-thing, and that's definitely achievable, right? So the key thing is to find the right people as an investor, find the programs that will support the business. So create a business model. That's the first thing. And I think once you create that step, then you can get people to come invest in it. And then you can pursue that, and that's achievable. Very simple.
I have the business model in my mind because it's already being done. And I work in social services, so I see where my clients are living, where people are living, and so on. And I can understand how it works. I understand the funding. I understand, in a sense, right? So I already know, and I have it like it's all in here. It's just not like there.
So flush it out on write-in and create a proposal. And I assure you, people like myself or others who are saying, "Hey, this is what we can project to earnings this year, and etc. This is the concept we're trying to give back to the community."
And I just know the need is there. I know the need is there. I get so many calls. I'm sure, Horace, you get calls too. Like, I can't find a unit. You know, not just young people with families. I'm seeing, I think they can figure it out. But when it comes to seniors or those who, I had somebody called me, they're living in a hotel and they just had double knee surgery and they're like 63 or something. And no family really here. And I thought, oh my God, you need like supportive care, whether it's long-term or not.
I think you have a great idea. I would say flush it out, because it's something simple like this. I'll give you a perfect example. For example, your idea is saying you want to provide this care, you have the model, you have the funders who will do it, particularly in terms of government agencies to finance these people. Hey, I have a property that's vacant. I can now rent it to you and say, for X amount of dollars, let's say $2,500 a month, and you're charging $1,000 per room to provide adequate care, a staff, whatever the case is, you've now entered into this business model. You don't just have to own the home. You can find a rental of someone who's going to be able to have you set this up. And once you set up and show that it works, then you can say, oh, I can buy a property now to support this and do et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite doable. Just flush out the idea, write the business model, and approach myself or someone like myself who's always interested in these kind of ideas, because I've explored group homes. I've had people who work in group homes tell me the business proposal to fund it. My only deterrence from that is that it's scary. The clientele that you get can go really sideways.
Well, that's why you have staff. I don't
have the tolerance for that as a business model or investment to know that I'm liable, or my assets are liable, that are on there. But with elderly, that's less risk, right?
Not exactly.
Ren.
Horace is like, I don't want nobody attacking me, but that's why you have like everything that's existing
Ren,
now.
I'm talking to you. Ren.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm talking to you. So this is what we're gonna have to do, Ren, because everything can be up in your head and in your mind. So there's an organization called the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce. They're running business plan sessions. You need to put your business plan together, and then they're going to support you with an ecosystem of support, different places. So I'll drop that in the chat, the Canadian Black Chamber of Commerce, because, you know, I have 20 books up here, but I only wrote one. So the other 19 is going to stay here until I actually have to write. So we will get you that information. We have a couple more things to go before we head out stage left. But thank you. Okay. You are one of those people who seem to be very enthusiastic about it. So you are the right person to be pushing an investment in that area. So, however, Ren, it can't be in your head. You have to put it down.
I actually review business plans and stuff for people. So writing it is not the problem. I can get it done. And I do have Black, you know, the Chamber of Commerce is perfect too. Black North Initiative. There's so many places and fundings and grants I've done and stuff in the past. So I'm familiar with it. I'm just not sure how everybody else feels, because if the support's there, then great. I'll put my you know, I'll put 100, I'll put my feet in it. I'll put my foot in it. Right.
Ren, just do the business plan now. Just do the business plan.
Ren, I can assure you that I have properties that can become available if you have a plan that's sustainable and makes sense, that you can sort of say, hey, let's start this off as a test run in this property. Whether I have most of them in Durham, I have stuff that comes out in West End, especially seniors, like bungalow style property that's easy for mobility and stuff like that. It's there. It's not hard. Just put it together, and we can get people to pair up with the properties.
No problem, Horace. I'll message you and stuff. And I know Ashley could definitely lend a hand. I'll connect with you guys offline regarding your options.
We have thank you, Tish.
Thank you, guys. Good to know. I'll connect with people in the chat. Just leave me your email or something if you want to be connected in it, because I have some rough drafts, but I will definitely connect again. Thank you for hearing me out and listening.
Thank you, Ren. Tish, thank you for your patience. I know you've been listening to back and forth with this thing, but you don't know. We have to ash out the things.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so quick question. I actually, I'm 30 years old and I have a property in Montreal, Quebec. And I don't want to sell my property. I'd actually like to rent it, but I do want to relocate to somewhere in Ontario. And I've actually been looking at Cornwall specifically because the prices look pretty good. And so I've heard of people using one property to buy another property, but I really don't know how to do that and when I should. Like I've had my property for 4 years. So I don't know when you should look into like, I don't know if it's called refinancing or like cash out or home equity loan. I don't know what the right name is for it. I don't know at what point I would get the most amount of money out of the property that I have. And I also don't know who to talk to because I haven't had the best experience, even the first time around, with banks. And so when you mentioned that there are other people that I can borrow from that might be able to work with me a bit better, I went through 3 different banks and got 3 totally different borrowing amounts. So I just don't know if there's someone who I should be talking to and where to get the information. So that's the question.
So Tisha, so here's it. So we will start with Mr. Dockery, since, when they call himself, I want to change his name from a broker, but we can call him the money people. So he's a good person to answer that question too. And then Ashley could go ahead after. Go ahead.
So one of the things that I heard the horrible experiences Black people have with the banking system in Montreal and Quebec. It's very discriminatory. And I was shocked some of the stories I've heard. But having said that, this is where, quote unquote, a broker or money guy who has relationship with multiple different lenders can package your deal and say, okay, I'll put it together. So there's an arm's length. So the lender doesn't necessarily need to know who you are directly. Right? You don't have to go into the branch and they see your face and they can have their own implicit or explicit biases influence their decision. So this is where we're the buffer and we know which particular lenders to take on, and that will give you favorable outcomes. So the question you also asked was that when is the best time to take out equity? Whenever you're ready, essentially. Right now, properties are at historical highs. So that means that you'll get the most out of your property, and lenders, institutional, will give you up to 80% of whatever your values are. Right? So if your property is worth, let's say hypothetically $1 million, they'll give you a mortgage up to $800,000 as long as you qualify. If you have a $500,000 mortgage, you can access up to $300,000 worth of liquid equity out of it. Okay. So the question is, whenever you're ready is the best time. And also right now, if you're looking to do it soon, then property values are so high, but there's a cool win in the market where values may drop because of whatever's going on in the economy. You may want to take advantage of it now. The question is, who should you go to? I will, since I'm in that role or field, I'll simply say a broker like myself, right? We can get your application file and then say, okay, we'll pair you up with the best lender that we know that will give you the best outcomes that you may need. And that's usually the process. And then you can talk to Ashley and she'll tell you all about Cornwall and how great it is.
Yes, that's exactly, just because I'm also an investor in real estate. So yeah, Horace put the head on the nail, exactly. He has access to B lenders who are more favorable than A lenders, which are the banks. So he's going to present your file in a nice package and be like, here's what she's about, and then present it to them. So I would suggest speaking to someone like him, if not him directly, to help you with that. Right now, the prices in Cornwall are at a good, how should I say? I always refer to Mississauga because that's where I'm from. So Mississauga 30 years ago was very rural in terms of they didn't have so many condos. They had some residential areas, and the mall square one wasn't as big as it is now. 30 years now, if you see Mississauga, it's crazy. It's grown so much. So why I say this or reference this is because Cornwall is pretty much at a pinnacle where Mississauga was 30 years ago. And it's growing quite fast because of this unprecedented time with COVID. The housing market is good right now to jump in before it gets to the point. Like I'm already bought out of my area. I couldn't buy another house in my area right now because it's gone up already, right?
Okay.
So from my perspective, like Horace was saying, when's a good time? When you're ready. Like this is a good time looking at all the indicators. Like you've had your home for 4 years. I can't imagine what your value of your home is right now. Like it's probably really favorable for you. So like right now with the prices, they're kind of like in a nice balance right now, that if you wanted to jump in, this is a good time to kind of probably jump in before summer hits, where everyone's just like, I want to buy a house now, right? So this is kind of like, for me personally, I like to kind of buy off season, like around spring, winter time, because nobody really wants to buy around that time. That was historic. That was historically, right? But now it's whenever. But prices, like I said, are more favorable in my opinion right now, being in March, than I'm anticipating they will be in June. And Horace, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I just feel like it's going to keep going up. So
Sure.
I don't know if there's going to be a lull or a slowdown at all. I don't know. I don't really see that personally, but so that's just my opinion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And Tisha, it looks like you're close enough to Montreal. You know, like, you know, they do some Frenchy down there in Cornwall. You're like close enough, an hour and something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
look like it's a good kind of energy.
Yeah,
perfect.
for
Thank
sure,
you.
for sure. So
Beautiful.
you got us,
So-
you got myself and Horace too. So
Oh.
you got us. So you have your contacts.
For sure, for
Sounds
sure.
good. Okay, perfect. Because I kept hearing that it had something to do with like how much you've paid down on your house or on your property or on your condo, whatever. And I can't get, but you told me more in this like 2-3 minute answer than I've been able to understand any other place that I went. If that.
Yeah. We try to
Awesome.
simplify it as best as possible. That's the goal. So,
Yeah,
thank
so it's very accessible because information's there for sure.
So
Perfect.
there's a big question, or is that we didn't even get to, because somebody called me up, you know, Marcus Garvey, he just called me, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, and he said, Brother Sankofa, you're not gonna let this man leave here without talking about pre-constructions.
Mhm.
So, you know, pre-constructions down the road, is it reasonable? Because you get into a VIP situation versus a bidding war?
Mhm.
Is that a strategy?
So pre-construction, okay, so let's look at pre-construction on two different ways. One as an investor and two as an end user, owner occupied. So the pre-construction is great in the sense that it may give you time to save up, but also it requires a lot more down payment upfront versus a resale. And I always say to people, I've bought pre-construction, but only single family residential. I'm not a fan of investment condos. Reason being, maintenance fees go up over time. And there's also closing costs, development costs that are sometimes unanticipated and must be capped in the contract. So my thing I say to people, here's the thing. You want to, end user, meaning owner occupied, not an investor. You want to buy a house, are you going to buy off a pre-construction and stuff like that? Historically, they've worked out well. The market is changing slightly and you don't want to take those kind of risks if you're over leveraged, right? And the other thing is to look at too, the government's under considerable pressure to dampen the market, slow it down because prices are too high. And the one way they do that for investors or for end users, they change the rules. So if you buy a house today and 2 years from under the rules of today, and you're thinking that you're going to qualify as the rules of today, and 2 years from now, you're going to close. And guess what the government says? You have the ratios have now changed, or the regulatory bodies that said the rules have changed. If you have a property, you have to put down X amount more. If you can't sell it between a certain time period, you may get messed over financially. So those are some high risks that I tell people. If you're not liquid, don't take those risks. Okay. So my rule is I like properties that close within 90 days because I know the rules are going to be consistent within that time period. I know what to expect, right? I know what my closing cost is going to be. I don't have to wait on policies, government regulations, and all that stuff that may change between the time you bought it under contract and closing. So I'm not a fan of that. Having said that, some people have gotten lucky, but I don't play the luck game. I mitigate my risk, right? So I can stay in it longer. And that's how I have held on through the ups and downs.
Fine. So let's go to Ashley. Somebody wants to do a pre-condo or something for your Airbnb. It's going up in Cornwall in 2025. What did you say?
If the condo did what? Sorry?
It's going up 2025 in Cornwall, right in the heart of the city, busy area near the airport. What's your advice? What would you advise me? Should I go ahead 2025 and gamble on the pre-condo?
Well, I mean, like I said, like I personally agree with Horace. I'm a risk person to an extent. I don't want the rules to be changing when I've already put everything on the plate. So to answer your question candidly, any investment is a good opportunity. There are great indicators right now in Cornwall that it is growing and it is developing. So it wouldn't be forsaken to invest in something like that, in my opinion, in a city that's developing like as fast as Cornwall is right now. You wouldn't lose, in my opinion.
All right.
And in terms of risk, I can't advise you on that.
Thank you. So let's go back to Mr. Dockery. Now,
I like resale.
So expensive. It's like a bidding war. Well, anyways, let's go to the fact now that the government and interest rates, because some people, we talk about the science of compounding. You actually pay for your house maybe twice over the lifetime of the mortuary mortgage. So here we are. I have a variable. I'm anticipating that the government is going to keep raising. What's your thoughts around locking in to fix or continue variable while the government is thinking about inflation and raising the interest rate?
Yeah, the government the Bank of Canada just raised the rate by a quarter percentage, and historically variable has always outperformed fixed. So I tell people don't panic at this stage. For variable to really lose against fixed, it's going to take multiple increases by the Bank of Canada, which they have to do measurably. So the problem is they can't go too high, too fast. They can't move too fast because they can counter any progress the economy has made, but they're under a lot of pressure to curtail or dampen inflation and stuff like that. So we have multiple factors that are influencing their decision. We have a war in Ukraine. We have high oil prices. We have other potential recession on the line. If we make it more unaffordable for people, it may make everything get a lot worse. So I think even though they inflation is going higher, they have to make that decision now. But I don't think they're going to be move aggressively to increase interest rates later on. So I think variable is still a better bet, and it probably will be for the next year or two.
Okay, thank you for that. And as we say, always talk to your advisors. Always talk to your, and I always say, speak to 3 Airbnb people, speak to 3 brokers, real estate. And so you get a balanced answer. None of these statements we give today are any type of professional advice. That's my reclaimer, and I'm sticking by it. Is there any other questions? Source, I think Source had it. Now is the time before we exit stage left and stage right. So is there anyone else who didn't get a chance?
Yeah, it's Renee again. I asked a question about the property management service. I don't know if it was answered. I don't think it was, but just in case, does any, Ashley or anybody else, do you provide like a property management
Just property? No, I can refer to someone in Cornwall for property management, but our business is only Airbnb property management. So if you do want to purchase in Cornwall, then yes, we have, we've gone to the extent, we do want to keep it local. We are also local tourism ambassadors. So we do tie in a lot of local businesses with our business. So on that note, we do have a lot of relationships with other trades. So if that's what you want to do, you want to just own a property here, but have a normal tenancy, then we do have some contacts that we can connect you with to do so. But we strictly do Airbnb property management.
Okay. So does anybody have, thank you. So, and there's any Black-owned property management companies? And if there aren't that many, it'd be good to kind of get some going, right?
In Cornwall, for sure.
Or anywhere, not just Cornwall, just GTA.
Okay, yeah. No, for sure. I totally agree with you on that. I'm trying to bring more Black people here, but not just to reside, but also have businesses. I believe I'm the third or second Black-owned business here.
Hey.
Just to give a reality check. Yeah. So
thank you. Jennifer Miller. Jennifer Miller, are you still on there? Could you come on? Jennifer Miller.
Hi, Kofi.
Could you come on, Miss Jennifer?
Hi.
Wonderful. It would be great to see you, but if we can't, that's okay.
Yeah, sorry, I can't right now.
Great. Could you speak to what you're doing in property management? Or are you still continuing to do it?
Well, I am currently a property manager for cooperative housing. I've been for some 25 years. So about a year ago, I've decided that it's time for me to sort of start doing something for myself. So it's something that I'm putting together, but I wouldn't say it's 100% ready to go. But yes, I do property management and I'm looking into my own business.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, and if somebody did it for 25 years and they're doing their own business, they're ready to go. They just want a push, right? Because if you can do somebody else's property management 25 years, your own is ready to go. Anybody need a property person in Ontario, call Jennifer Miller. Tell her as Sankofa said, she's ready to go.
Thanks, Sankofa.
Thank you.
I'm gonna call you, Jennifer. I'll be calling you.
Thank you.
Drop your
I
contact in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Sankofa.
Yeah, man, because at the end of the day, we are powerful people beyond our means. We like to be polite, we like to be shy. But my ancestor says, if we can build pyramids and give civilization to the world, don't play small for nobody. So Brother Source, you look like you had something to say. I see your action behind there. Unmutify yourself and enter the conversation, even if you're across the border. You're a man over the next border. So unmutify yourself, brother.
Oh yes, I had a few things to add on. The sister was speaking about the elderly and their care. Partner, myself, she had a situation with a neighbor of hers that she was aiding in her care, looking out for her neighbor. And she wound up in the hospital long term. And the apartment building management, they just came in and just got rid of all her belongings. And saying we need to do something about that, have a co-op living or something where they still have a sense of their independence, but yet at the same time have the assistance readily available that they need. My thought about that goes a little further. When it comes down to all the legacy, the family history lost in these storages, and every time one of our elderly wind up victim to this, they don't have anyone else who then carries on that history. I have a photo album full of my history. I did not know my ancestors have a great uncle who was a Buffalo soldier and beyond. So military men is deep in my family lineage. And I'm okay, if something happened to me, what happens with this? Trying to get together plan some type of co-op living for melanated beings. I also just want to throw out there that I am certified as a property maintenance manager. The basic, I guess, janitorial, reconstruction, maintenance of property, done security of property with a canine. I also want to say, interested in your idea, you mentioned SUSU groups as far as a investment way for people to eventually be able to afford to buy a house. I would like to find out more information about it and other things as far as investments that gives you rapid maturing investments so we can buy property. My idea is to buy land where our people can come together as living quarters and, like partner said, we grow our own food. I'm not just talking carrots, lettuce. I'm talking aquaponics, seafood, using fish and that water to you know, supply crops, fertilize the crops. So now you got a win-win. You're growing your crops, you're raising seafood. And when it comes down to certain farm animals, cattle, might have to hire somebody. Something more easier to manage and profitable, sheep. Wool still sells. That's all I want to say. And I'm glad you brought this, you guys put all of this together. It's extremely informative.
So are you here in the Canada? Are you in our neighbors?
Well, right now, I'm originally from Chicago. I plan on coming to Canada. That's why I'm here in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Just
okay, that's good.
Everything, so I can't cross the
border. No, good. So when you're, because it's important to know, right? Because sometimes there's property out there and, multiple property need maintenance because we had to come clear it out and, do all that work. And we want to keep it in our business, whether it's staging, all of real estate. And I'm sure Brother Dockery knows that we need the agent, we need the broker, we need the stager, we need the lawyer, like Brother Michael on this call. He's my construction person, my general contractor. So, we need all of those things to keep the money in our community 1,000 times. If I'm thinking of investing, I'm going to work with Ashley till Ashley don't want to work with me. I don't know no other Black person in Cornwall right now, but I travel to Haiti, so my Haitian is automatically my family is down there. But she's my conduit, so it's important for us to continue. I will hook up Sister Nikki with the Susu. I'm the Susu person. I don't think Brother Dockery is the Susu man here. I think I'm the Susu man. I'm in multiple Susus, you know what I mean? Because the science of Susu and partner is build trust, use our funds pooling together, and build. That's what we as Africans build before compound interest. That's not in our interest sometimes. So it's beautiful, but it's good to be here. I think we spend more time than we should. This is the first part. CANCC normally does sessions around cryptocurrency. I think the next session we're gonna have is around crypto, and then I'm gonna have a part 2. Just so you know, there's like 20,000 real estate person, 20,000 Black people do mortgage. So I'm gonna each time I do this session, I'll invite another sister and brother to share some different techniques and different things. Because today I didn't talk about I think one of my family member, Nikki, talked about co-ownership. But Brother Horace, there's actually some things in the marketplace now that we could make like a $15,000 down payment but not co-own the place while we pay this down payment. If we
Yeah.
pay extra,
Yeah.
eventually they will sell us, and then we don't have to actually find a mortgage.
Mhm.
So those are some of the things out down the road we'll also talk, because there's different instruments, techniques, right?
Definitely. And some of those techniques have certain costs, which I always like to highlight to people. So they're probably cheaper alternatives. I must point out we have a Facebook, a Toronto GTA Black housing and financing Facebook group with over 5,000 Black members from the community here, where we offer tons of information, free, helpful. I posted the link inside the chat there. If you see a Facebook link there, that's for that. Join it. There's so many different information there. Lots of articles. Lots of articles, a lot of topic pieces and stuff like that, discussions, a lot of professionals in there, from lawyers, Black realtors, Black mortgage agents, Black insurance people. And we offer free information, free. No solicitation, just want to educate you. It's free.
Join it. Please,
it's like, right in folks, there. Yeah.
I'm telling them, join it, because anytime we could build digital communities, you know, I'm on all of them, by the way. I'm in the Durham Black group. I'm in a Peel Black group. I'm in the Real Estate Black group. I'm in every group, because here's the thing. I'm making up for all the unity that they try to mess up with us, right? So I don't always have to agree with everybody, but I want to be in the same room with everybody, because I'm going to love my people. You know, they asked Marcus Garvey once, you know, what's up with you on this Black power? You know, do you hate white people? And Marcus Garvey said, I don't have any time to hate white people. I'm spending enough time loving Black people. So that's all we got to do. So I'm going to leave the last few words, Sister Ashley, and then I'm going to leave another word with you, Mr. Dockery. Then if anybody else have nothing to say, then we're going to finish the evening and move on. So Sister Ashley, I want to thank you for coming. Do you have any lasting thoughts?
Last parting words. Don't be scared to build what you deserve. It is a scary process, but it's well worth it. And after you do it so many times, it just becomes second nature. You got to take that chance, a chance in yourself, and stop paying for someone else's mortgage and pay yourself first. And there's so many ways of exhausting your property, and Airbnb definitely is one of them. And if you're in Cornwall, please send a shout out and say hi to us, or at least stay at one of our properties. We want to see more Black people here, and this is our goal. So always feel free to reach out through email. I sent my contact information, Facebook or Instagram. There's so many opportunities that we haven't exhausted yet. So just take a chance on yourself, and nothing well worth it comes easy. You have to put a lot of work in it, but like I said, it's well worth it.
Madasi, and I forgot to tell you when I was talking about racism and all of that, I think 10,000 of us moved to Cornwall, we could take over the government and the police force. So if anybody wants to go to Cornwall, 10,000 of us will go. Brother Horace Dockery, what you got to say? What's your word?
Knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And the more informed you are, the more options you have. And that's the key thing that I learned. My story briefly, I bought my first house at 23. I learned it. Guess where I got my down payment from? My OSAP money.
I knew this.
I took my OSAP money. I bought RSPs. I used the RSP, government first time home buyers plan, and I used that as my down payment, right? Several years later, I own several properties, several rentals. I'm helping people do the game. Learn the rules so you can hack it. Everything seems difficult until you realize it's not that overwhelming with the right support and knowledge and information. Just ask. I told you about the Facebook groups. People are willing to share, especially our community. I love to share to our community and give information free. You don't have to support me at all. I don't do thing there. But if I can help a family, because I believe that karma comes back in other forms of or fashion, I'm willing to offer that information for free. No expectations at all. It's easy. The information is there. The strategies are there. Just reach out and ask. That's all you have to do. And everything seems difficult until you take the first step. And you realize, why didn't I do this earlier? And that's the truth.
Wow. So, thank you, man. Keep on going. You have one more to say?
No, just say, keep pushing on and just learn as much as you can and ask for help and support because it's out there. All right.
All right.
And thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Brother Sean, could you come on? I want to bring on Brother Sean. How you doing, my brother?
But then your message won't get out if you're taken down. I understand, but what the steps I would take after that help and
Hey, how are you doing, brother? Could you first of all, this is Brother Sean. He's been member of our Black business organization for many centuries, many moons, many decades. And this brother, he decided to buy his property, and he has a business knowledge bookstore. So, Brother Sean, before we go, could you just tell us a little bit about the bookstore? Because as we try to keep Black institutions, just tell us a little bit about your bookstore and where it's located, and then we will just exit.
Yes, the bookstore is Knowledge Bookstore, and we are an African-centered bookstore, which means the majority of the writers we carry are African writers. And when I say African, that means Black people from everywhere and anywhere. And the products we carry are cultural products. So we support local vendors, whether here in Africa, different places and so forth. And we are located in Brampton at 177 Queen Street West. Or you can reach us online at knowledgebookstore.com. And for some people, I know some people prefer to call. The number is 905-459-9875. Okay? And we are here to serve the community. And we've been doing so for 24 years.
Could you drop something in the chat? So we're going to give people some time here. So Sister Sense, I notice you're not on, but if you're on, could you come on? And Sister Nikisha, there's a few people that I know that they're exploring their business. So before we go, Brother Sean, drop some things in the chat. Sister Nikisha.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Would you tell us about your business conceptual, Sean? And so drop a thing in the chat so people could connect.
Awesome. Okay. So it's two parts. My brand name is Oracle Phoenix Guide. I am a spiritual wellness guide. And also the second part is I'm cultivating a hub where all like-minded beings who are on the journey of educating, as well as whether they're a practitioner or offer products and services, will come together under one umbrella. It's called Supreme Beings Mega Hub Space. So I'm in the process of developing that. So this is for spiritual and holistic practitioners of the Afro diaspora globally. And so it is an international business. So that's the one that I'm focusing on. And also for Oracle Phoenix Guide, I am launching my podcast for focusing right now. The series is focusing on women, their stories, and their sacred journey. What is sacred to them, and how do they cultivate their sacred moments? So the show is called Sacred Moments. So it's a mouthful, I'm sorry, but I will post all the information down below, as well as the links. And thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And Sister Nikki, Sister Oracle, please. I think you need to give us more of the stuff, more of the mouthful. So thank you for the mouthful. I really say that at the end of the day, just give it to us because we need more Oracle, all right?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
All right, give thanks. Sister Sensorinette. Because, we can't leave our session where we have so many business-minded, entrepreneurial, and community activists here. So while we end the main session, we have to go out by just introducing. So Sister Sensa, go ahead.
Well, thank you for a very informative session. Sankofa, since you mentioned Sister Ashley to me, I have been on realtor.ca looking at Cornwall, looking at the prices, looking at the buildings, not for AirBnB process purposes, because I want to move east. So you may have another Black friend, Ashley, and if I come out or even to visit, I'm going to hit you up.
I look forward to that. Please, please. And if we can open up a business here, I'll gladly support it. That'll
Yes.
be awesome.
So
We
my
need more Black
business,
businesses here.
my business name is Saw Ankh Wisdom of Life, and I support people in applying real resources from lived experiences in order to overcome challenges and build their own tribe. That's for parents as well as for professionals. So Nikisha, I think me and you really need to link up because I use traditional, ancient, and modern healing methods to help people through what we call our regular day of living. Well, that's me in a box. I have lots of little things that I do, lots of tools that I sell to support the healing journey. But I'm going to put my contact in the chat. Nikisha, I'm going to send you a direct message because I really do think we should chat. Thank you again, Brother Sankofa, Knowledge Bookstore, and was it CANCC who
Yes.
else was the other support?
Yeah, CANCC, who we see, you know, we can see.
That's a book.
Yeah, so I just want to, Sister Jennifer, could you come back on? Lately, for several years, I was actually the president and chairperson of CANCC, but we decided that we need new leadership. So we want to ensure that Sister Jennifer, are you there? Joy Miller? If you're not there, then that's okay. But she's the president, so I wanted to just recognize her. As we go, just for the record, Sister Nikisha and Sister Sensa, I willfully invited you together. So I'm smiling because it's always good.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yes, so that's awesome. You guys are always, we're going to meet anyway. So it's awesome. If you need any business plan, all those information, me and Brother Sean, I think we attend every workshop. So if you need any information, I drop my information in the chat, just let me know. The government has provided 10 million in funding. They say they want to help 200 Black folks to purchase homes. And with a group called Black North by a gentleman named Wes Hall. So if you need any information, whatever, just, you got my contact, you got my email and also my phone number, just connect. And we could also invite you to our next session. Every month, for the next few months, we'll have a session. We'll have a session on crypto. Brother Sean does the cryptocurrency, because we want you guys to also have an African concept when you invest. So if you're gonna invest in Cardano, you will have, you'll say maybe that's the best crypto. So we'll have session on that. We'll also have some more real estate sessions with new ideas, and none of these things we wanted to also go and research, like Sensor and Ebb. Okay, so one love, everybody. I'm going to give you love and light, and until we meet again. One love. Au revoir.
Thank you
Thanks
so
again.
much. Gratitude. Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you for the invite.
Good times, good times.
Appreciation.
Thank you, everyone.